All right, and we're live on Energy Superheroes. Today we have Rijo Abraham, and he's based in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, and he is a decarbonization and energy efficiency expert. He's actively working on energy efficiency projects across the UAE. And we're also going to talk about today sustainable finance, regenerative economy, blockchain. These are all things that Rijo is interested in, but we're gonna spend quite a bit of time on energy efficiency and also the United Arab Emirates and the broader GCC region. Rijo, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Peter. I mean, it's a pleasure and an honor to be part of this show, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Very good. And so it's great to have you. Tell us about energy efficiency projects in the UAE. I'm curious to hear about that. It's a trend that's been big in the United States and Canada over the last 20 years, but I'm interested to hear the specifics about how it applies to the UAE.
Yeah, so in the UAE, I mean, there's been a lot of interest as well as a lot of legislation that's pushing forward energy efficiency as well as demand side management strategies across different types of sectors. So, if I can maybe summarize the type of categories of projects, we're looking at one is building retrofit projects. The other one would be looking at the transportation side, how to have a more energy efficient transportation system. Another one would be to bring in renewable energy sources into the equation, as well as we have opportunities into integrating with the smart grid system as well. But I think I would like to focus more into what I'm used to working on, which is the building retrofit projects. So building retrofit projects has received a lot of push from the government. Specifically, I think we all understand that buildings contribute to most of the consumption. If you look in terms of overall utility consumption, and part of that HVAC or AC, specifically in the UAE, it accounts for around 60 to 70% buildings load. So we really look at targeting the AC systems as well as lighting to really bring down the consumption for the building space. Now in Dubai, there has been multiple schemes that's been launched to drive building retrofit projects. And also recently in Abu Dhabi, there's also been legislation that's brought in to push through building retrofit projects.
And now, very
So,
good. It- it's not surprising that air condition consumes a lot of power in the UAE. I have been there before, and it is pretty warm, but it's a fantastic climate. And I'm in Florida. We use AC a lot as well, so I definitely get that. Can we dig into it a little bit more and talk us through sort of what a project might look like as kind of a case study? It helps. I think it helps to visualize what a real project would look like.
sure. So maybe I can speak from perspective of project developer for building retrofit projects. So the first step, what we do when we speak to our clients is we have an initial meeting to understand what are the loads that's a part of the building, how the building is being operated, what sort of bills are they paying, what are the energy sources? Do they have electricity, water, chill water? Do they have any other sources of energy? We have that initial review session with the client to understand more about how the building operates, and then we carry out a walkthrough audit, which is basically going across the facilities to understand what are the different types of assets, how is the building being operated, and what sort of opportunities can we really see to have a save or reduction on the bill. Once we've identified a good opportunity in the building, and if the building seems to be feasible, we come back to the client. We tell them that, listen, there is potential to save 20, 30% savings, to bring in 20 to 30% reduction on the bill. And if the client would like to engage, then we start to work on a more detailed energy audit. And that's when things get serious. So it moves into a month or a two exercise with logging done to make measurements of different assets, specifically HVAC, because that's where most of the consumption is. We basically get a trend of consumption across the buildings on the AC side, the lighting, pumps. Also, we look at potential to have maybe renewable energy. So renewable, mainly solar, PV systems as well. So, I mean, that's also something that we look into. And once the development phase is done, then we look at how we can finance these projects. Now, typically, how it works is based on the utility tariff. The projects could vary between 5 to 8 years, where we as a project developer would invest completely into these projects, 100%. And It's from the future savings that the capital would be recovered. So the owner basically has no need to put any upfront capital. He or she gets new assets, whether it be HVAC lighting, pumps, or even solar. And also, it's a great opportunity to integrate the plants, decarbonization, as well as net zero plants they might already have. So it's a win-win situation for the building owner.
And now that sounds great. And so it makes it easy for the building owner to move forward because they don't have to put up any cash up front and they're going to get these great new assets and help with their decarbonization strategies. Do you have a sense of, say in Abu Dhabi, what percentage of the buildings are in need of these kind of services? Is it all the buildings or have most of them already done energy efficiency projects? What does the market look like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So Abu Dhabi has, I would say, a fair stock of old buildings as well as the newer buildings, right? So for the older buildings, what we look at in terms of feasibility is the size of the building in terms of the number of floors as well as the area setup, and also the asset type as well. So sometimes we see that air conditioning systems could be the large air cooled chiller types, as well as we see water cooled chillers as well. So, as part of the feasibility exercise, it's to understand the performance of these chiller systems to align with the energy efficiency standards. So, if we see that there could be a significant improvement in the performance of these chillers, then we see that there could be potential to have a project in the pipeline. Now, looking at the building spread across Abu Dhabi, I would say around 70 to 80% would be the older stock of buildings which have a potential to be retrofitted or refurbished. So there is, yeah, great potential in Abu Dhabi for sure.
No, that sounds good. Some other technologies, and I don't know if this fits into what you're looking at all, but we have heard a little bit about heat pumps.
Yeah.
So heat pumps is a new kind of technology that has attracted a lot of investor attention in the whole, what I would call sphere of electrification within the United States. Are you seeing that similar trend over there?
Yes, we do. So I think in the US, it's maybe on a grander scale, but here, the areas that we look at is for swimming pools. Traditionally, there might be electrical heaters to heat the swimming pools. So there is a potential to replace those electrical heaters with heat pumps, which provide both heating as well as cooling as an output of the heat pump. So that's one area where we've seen for the swimming pool side. Also, in terms of water heating, when we have an opportunity to have a centralized system, because in Abu Dhabi buildings, we see there are standalone electric water heaters. So in all cases, it doesn't make sense to have a centralized system because of the cost impact. But yeah, wherever there's an opportunity to bring in a centralized system, heat pumps is a no-brainer. So we try to bring in heat pumps because it brings in the heating as well as cooling as an output. So it's something that fits into the overall project ecosystem.
And no, that makes sense. So beyond the energy efficiency projects that you're involved in, what are some of the other decarbonization trends that you're seeing in Abu Dhabi, the UAE more broadly, and even across the GCC?
So there's been a lot of push also with respect to renewable energy and as well as, yes, even nuclear comes in renewable energy. So but what we've seen is solar as well as nuclear has seen a major push on the generation side. On the demand side, we've seen that there has been a lot of strategies like demand side response also coming into align with the building retrofit program as well as other energy efficiency programs. So, I mean, we've seen that there's been a massive push on all levels. It's on the generation side, on the demand side as well. So, yeah, I see that coming few years is going to be really promising for the industry.
And no, that makes sense. And generally, how would you say the economy is in the region? We've seen a little bit of tightening in relation to rising interest rates. I'm curious, how are things in the UAE economically?
I think what I've seen is that, I mean, everybody is impacted in a way or the other. But the economy is still very strong in the sense that if you look, there's not been any real impact in terms of jobs, or even if you go into the traditional market, you don't see much of an impact. I see that the business has seen either a steady or seen a marginal increase as well. That's a personal experience of mine. This is what I've seen, that the economy is actually pretty stable across. Obviously, there are ups and downs, but nothing massive that really can be.
And now that's good to hear. We found each other on LinkedIn. Are you seeing the trend of LinkedIn becoming more popular in that region? And are you able to do business successfully with LinkedIn?
Oh yeah, I think LinkedIn is a very powerful tool. And I mean, maybe a few years back, people weren't very active on LinkedIn or social media in general, right? I mean, but now you can see like a lot of people very active. They understand how to use LinkedIn as a tool to really I mean, whether it be personal branding or even company-wise branding, and also to really share the message that they believe in. So, I mean, personally for me, it's been about energy efficiency and sustainability in general. So, I mean, I've been really looking to learn from a lot of people, and yeah, I mean, it's just pleasure to connect with you, Peter, as well. I'm sure there's a lot of information and knowledge share we can transfer. And I mean, yeah, for the common good of the people and the planet overall. Yeah.
And no, for sure. And tell me about personally how you feel about decarbonization and climate change and some of the challenges that we face.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, if I can just go back to how I started the journey, entering into this energy efficiency space, and then movement, to be honest, is it was because it was the hot topic. Everybody wanted to get a job in sustainability or energy efficiency, and I was drawn into that, right? But once I got into the sector or this ecosystem, I think like speaking to a lot of people, keeping my mind open, hearing different people out, I think I really started to understand the core message of what sustainability is about, what regeneration is about. So all of that, I think, especially in the last year, we've seen a lot of people really pushing the message of climate change, decarbonization, net zero. And some, I believe, personally might be commercially minded, but there are quite a few that I've discovered are really pushing the message because they really believe in it. They see the value in it. And I mean, we are living in a world, in a planet that's got a finite resources. So we need to know how to effectively utilize it, how we have to see things more holistically. It's not a siloed approach. We have to work with each other. So I mean, yeah, I've been on a discovery phase, moving away from the technical side of it to understanding it from a very high level on what really does this mean, right? So every day I'm learning, every day my mind is opening up to the new. Yeah, and for all of us, I think we're in a wonderful space and time moment.
It is great. And I will say that I feel like the UAE and Abu Dhabi in particular has something in common with the US, and that is it's a very resource rich land when it comes to traditional fossil fuels. The US is a top producer. And of course, we know the Middle East is as well. And so it's interesting. It almost takes a greater level of sacrifice when you're a large producer of fossil fuels to move more towards other types of sustainable energy resources, in that you have a population with a vested interest in maintaining the traditional resources. And we have to acknowledge that oil and gas has brought the world to the modern economy that we have today, and that we won't be able to make the energy transition without continued reliance on fossil energy for some time. And so I do look at that in terms of nations that have fossil rich resources as having a little bit more of a challenge sometimes in order to move forward. Because if you don't have any fossil resources, it's kind of like you have a vested interest in moving off of that anyway. So I do see that and acknowledge. I'll tell you, one of the cleanest cities I've ever been to the world is Dubai. What an amazing city. And I know you
Yeah.
grew up there. So tell me about Dubai growing up. And then now, what is it like Abu Dhabi, and sort of compare the two?
I mean, both Dubai as well as Abu Dhabi are wonderful places. I mean, yeah. So I came to Dubai when I was just at the age of 5. So my school years, I even did my university here. So it's pretty much like home to me. I learned a lot throughout the years in Dubai. So I think the best thing about Dubai is that it's multicultural, right? So it's not that you have just a specific nationality. You meet people from all forms of life. So that's the best thing I think I like about Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So yeah, I mean, it's just in the last 2 years that I to Abu Dhabi is the capital of the United Arab Emirates. Again, another wonderful place. It's obviously the oil-rich part of the country. But yeah, I mean, I would say very similar in terms of how things happen. And yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful place. I mean, the best thing, like I said, it's the fact that it's very multicultural. You get to really talk about different things. If you have an open mind, you can learn a lot. If It's great to engage with different types of people. So it's a wonderful place to be.
No, that's great. So tell me one thing that the audience should do if they come to Dubai, and then same thing for Abu Dhabi. What is something that people ought to do that maybe not all the tourists do? Because like I did the indoor skiing, and I have to be honest, the indoor skiing was kind of like a novelty, but I felt like I wish I was in that city longer because there's so many great things to do. But it's when you're only there a short time, you just get pushed into the tourist thing.
True, yeah. I mean, the thing with Dubai and even Abu Dhabi is that you have the new side of Dubai, which is more developed areas. So you have like Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world. You have the Dubai Mall, which is like the biggest mall in the world. Also, on the other side, you have the old Dubai, which is also really wonderful. You can go to the souks. You can go to your cafeterias, have your, I'm not sure if it correctly is something which is big here, which is chai or tea. So yeah, there you can go to the cafeteria and have your chai, sandwiches. So you can have a sense of the whole side of Dubai as well. And I mean, I think we're just speaking about Dubai and Abu Dhabi, but there's five other Emirates to be explored. So if you go to Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, the northern side of the UAE, there's a whole bunch of things you can do. There's, I think, something that I've recently started in the last 2 years has been hiking the mountains. It's quite an amazing thing to do. So they have very safe routes as well for beginners. So I'm a beginner. I took my daughter as well for the first hike that I've done. But there's a lot of things to do if you want to see the new side or the old side. I mean, yeah, so it gives you a great piece of history. You must drive on the Sheikh Zayed Road. There are pictures online if you check. You see how the city transformed in a matter of a few years, right? So from just a building or two on the side to mega structures across the road. So yeah, there's a lot of things to do, but I would say if you have less time, obviously you can go into the touristy places. Just you can really, I think the beautiful thing is again, the multicultural aspect of it. So you get to see different people, experience that. And if you have more time, definitely, I mean, go to the other Emirates as well. Enjoy the hiking and
No, it
also
sounds great.
mountain. Yeah.
That it's definitely on my list. We hope to come next year. We actually have an office in Dubai through analysts. We have an analyst that works for our investment banking group over there. So look forward to coming over and checking that out. I also know a pilot on Emirates, so I get a discount. I really have no excuse to not get over.
You must connect me to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll have to connect when I come over there. Definitely looking forward to it. Now, I wanted to give you a chance to see if you wanted to talk about any other topics, like maybe I noticed on your LinkedIn page, you mentioned blockchain, you mentioned sustainable finance. What's another topic that I didn't ask you about that maybe you'd like to go into a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, blockchain is very interesting. I mean, I see there's a lot of synergy between the technology that it is, as well as the overall scheme of sustainability. Myself, I've been learning the language of understanding what is the blockchain and what is, I mean, if you look on a higher level, what are distributed ledger technologies? So what are the different types of use cases? And one of the use cases that I've really spotted and seen is that sustainability driven projects can leverage blockchain technologies to really advance itself and push it through. And I think one of the beautiful things with blockchain is that you can really be decentralized. Obviously, there's a good and a bad side to it, but if used correctly, it can really drive energy efficiency and sustainability projects on a massive scale. So I think it's a wonderful tool to bring awareness to. It gives language or it empowers sustainability projects. And the fact that once it has a strong foundation, you can actually use it to scale these projects. So, yeah, I mean, maybe talk more about blockchain tech.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's funny you hit on that because we're one of the projects we're involved with, we're looking at originating some carbon credits because the project has reduced the carbon footprint of polypropylene, which is the type of plastic that's used in automobiles. And so significant reduction to the carbon footprint. And what we're seeing over here in the United States, and I think this is becoming more global, is registries that are more, let's say, qualified and credible for registering carbon credits. And so the natural, I think, offshoot of that is going to be once you create a carbon reduction credit, that credit has to be validated. And then at that point, it needs to go on the blockchain so that it can't be, oh, I see what you say. Audio is gone.
Okay, you're back for me now.
I'm back. I wonder if that was on your side or my side.
I think it looks like it was my side because I just saw a message that my connection is unstable. So I think that's me.
Oh, that's okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's why we do the podcast. So
Yeah.
that's why we record. That way we can make some edits and edit it
Yeah.
out. That's no big deal. But what I was saying is that with carbon credits, they're going to be put on the blockchain. And I think that's going to be a way of keeping them validated. And ultimately, we're going to get to a place, I think, where there's some kind of globally converging price of carbon. It's not a popular policy position to say there's going to be a carbon tax, but I do think there will be. And ultimately, there is going to be, I think, a global price of a ton of CO2, or let's say CO2 equivalent, because there's multiple types of GHGs. I think methane's 25 times worse than CO2. So it'll just depend. But I think it'll be a global price for 1 ton of CO2 equivalent. And that's going to help accelerate decarbonization because then you'll have a commodity market that is validated globally.
That's right. I agree. I'm seeing that. I mean, just a few years back, if you look, you wouldn't see much of interest, at least on the scale that it is right now, right? So I can see that different associations, entities, regulators have really looked to, first of all, understand what this is, what the carbon market is about, and also use it as a tool to drive sustainability. I mean, yes, there's been positive, but also a lot of negative press about the carbon markets. But I agree with you, Peter, that if there's a way to unify and put a certain price to 1 ton of carbon, then yeah, I mean, I think it helps things. And again, I think I've seen more than 30 projects that look at carbon emission reduction as well as having the carbon credit integrated with these projects. And I think it is positive because number one, it looks like we will reach a point where we have a viable solution and also to really use the tool for what it is to drive positive and good into the planet. So yeah, I think definitely there's a lot of promising areas there.
No, very good. Well, Rijo, I couldn't agree more. Tell the audience how to get in touch with you. I know you have a LinkedIn page, Rijo Abraham on LinkedIn, and we'll definitely link to you in the show notes. But is there anything else you wanted to tell the audience, either about you or other things that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I can end with this. I've been also on a discovery to look at just, I mean, deconstructing myself to understand what really is sustainability. Why am I doing this? I mean, apart from the fact that when you're in the industry, it sounds fancy, but it's more than that. It goes deeper than that, right? It's about the other person. At the end of the day, I would say everybody to really work in the industry, who want to get in the industry, take some time to really sit down and think about what really does sustainability mean? How does it impact not just themselves, but also the other person as well? And to really see what values can be driven. And everybody has a role in this. It's not a specific type of project. It's not a specific way of thinking, but yeah, I mean, I think the moment that we're in, the time that we're in is wonderful because now everybody is catching up to the message. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to learn from each other and collaborate. So I think, yeah, just keep your ears, eyes, and yourself, I mean, your heart and mind open to learn from each other. And I think we're on the right track.
No, I think that's great advice. Rijo, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you on. This has been Rijo Abraham on Energy Superheroes. You can definitely find us on Spotify. Look us up at Energy Superheroes. We'll be posting this podcast on YouTube, Energy.Media. Make sure you follow us there. But Rijo, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Likewise, Peter, it was really a wonderful time and time really worth it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.